Would you please do the roll call?
Bonnie Franson.
Here.
Jeff Manson is out. Pat Shea.
Here.
Nick Napoli is out. Dylan Penn.
Here.
And Robert Garstock
Here.
will be filling in for Nick Napoli.
Right,
Thank
so
you.
with that, I'll point out the fire exits. There are two in front of me behind the audience. One over here, which is the main entrance into the building, and then there's another this way toward the patio. With that, would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. All right, first item on the agenda, we will be holding and opening a public hearing for Monroe Commons, Ninja Road. We need to open the meeting, Ashley?
It's a public hearing on the DEIS and also on the proposed site plan, hotel special use permit, and the local wetlands permit.
When you're all settled, we'll open the public hearing. Right. So I'd like to make a motion that we open a public hearing this evening for Monroe Commons, DEIS, public hearing, site plan and special use permit public hearing, as well as the wetlands permit public hearing. May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen?
Bonnie Franson. Pat Shea.
Aye.
Dylan Penn.
Aye.
Robert Garstock.
Aye.
Thank you.
So with that, we can open the public hearing. Would the applicant please introduce themselves and provide a presentation?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Board. Thank you for being here this evening. For the record, my name is Dan Richmond. I'm with the law firm Zarin and Steinmetz here, and I'm pleased to be here this evening on behalf of Monroe Ninninger LLC in connection with its exciting.
Button on top you have to slide over towards you.
It's on, he said, oh.
Didn't sound like it was going.
Is it on
Maybe-
now?
Yes.
It's
George,
on?
it's on?
It's on.
It's on? Okay. I'll start from the beginning. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Dan Richmond. I'm a partner with the law firm Zarin and Steinmetz, 81 Main Street, White Plains, New York. And I'm pleased to be here this evening on behalf of Monroe Ninninger in connection with its exciting proposal for a mixed-use commercial project, including a mix of retail, office, and hotel uses in an approximately 407,000 square foot building on Ninninger Road. Also here this evening on behalf of the applicant are John Dahlgren of Tim Miller Associates, the project's environmental planner, Vincent Petrosak of Petrosak and Paw Engineering and Surveying, PLLC, the project's engineering consultant, and Ken Worsted of Creighton Manning Engineering, Inc., the project's traffic consultant. As you've noted, we're here this evening for your board's public hearing on the draft environmental impact statement, or DEIS, prepared for the project pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, as well as the project's application for site plan, special permit, and wetlands permits from your board. For the benefit of the public, and our team will summarize the project, its potential impacts, and the proposed mitigation measures this evening. As explained in the DEIS, and as we will further explain this evening, we respectfully submit that the project is in compliance with all applicable special permits, site plan, wetlands, and architectural review standards set forth in the Town of Monroe Code. First, the proposed project will be in compliance with the special use permit standards found in Town Code Section 5712, including that the proposed hotel use will be compatible with the adjoining properties. The site is accessible to fire, police, and other emergency vehicles, and the hotel use is suitable for the project site, including in relation to its environmentally sensitive features. As we'll explain, the Monroe Commons development is not anticipated to have a significant adverse impact as it relates to steep slopes, floodplains, wetlands, or water courses, and any potential impact will be sufficiently mitigated. There will be adequate screening and separation distances to buffer the project, and the exterior lighting will not negatively impact adjoining properties. Parking will be sufficient so as not to create a nuisance, and vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle circulation will be safe and adequate. The project will also have adequate utilities, including stormwater, wastewater, water supply, solid waste disposal, and snow removal storage areas. The project is also in compliance with the specific special use standards for hotels in section 5713L of the town code, including that the project area exceeds the minimum 2-acre requirement, and the proposed 39 hotel rooms, each being approximately 5,000 square feet, are of sufficient size. The hotel market analysis, which is attached as Appendix K to the DIS, demonstrates that there is demand for the proposed hotel, taking into consideration existing and improved hotels within a 5-mile radius, and the project site is an appropriate location for the hotel. Next, the project is also in compliance with the site plan standards found in section 5720 of the town code, including, again, that there will be safe and convenient pedestrian and vehicular traffic circulation within the site, including for bus, truck, and fire truck movements, and there will be safe and adequate off-street parking facilities, and adequate collection and disposal of stormwater runoff, and adequate collection, treatment, and disposal of sanitary and sewage by plant or otherwise. Next, the project is also in compliance with the wetlands criteria found in 57.7 of the town code, including that disturbance to the wetlands have been minimized to the extent practicable to construct necessary access to the site and provide parking. And the wetland mitigation plan provides a robust area of wetland planting and enhancement that over time will improve the existing wetland area and function. Finally, the project will be in compliance with the architectural review standards set forth in 57-31 of the town code, including that the architectural value and significance of the structure will be appropriate and architecturally consistent with the surrounding area. It will not be excessively similar or dissimilar in relation to any other structure, and the proposed building will be at a height that is visually compatible. And finally, of course, the project's architectural design will take into consideration any other factors, including aesthetics, which your board may deem pertinent. With that, I'd like to hand it over to John to give you an overview of the process and the project.
So, just in terms of the process, started with the scoping process in July of 2020, and that was in the thick of the COVID pandemic, and we were all trying to learn how to Zoom, and the public scoping session was held in September of 2020, and that included input from the planning board, the planning board's consultants, and the involved in interested agencies into the scope, which is the outline for the DEIS, which we prepared. So our office prepared the DEIS, but it was really a team effort, group effort. Vince Peterzak's office prepared the site plan, and Ken Worsted's office prepared the traffic study, which was an extensive traffic study. That was Creighton Manning engineers. The DEIS also included a geotechnical study, wetlands and ecological surveys, noise study, air quality analysis that was related to traffic and parking circulation, and also a visual analysis with photo simulations was all provided in the DEIS. So an extensive analysis of the potential impacts of the project and mitigation measures. I'll just go over quickly the kind of the outline of the project. Can I use this mic? Well, I'll just.
While you're doing that, John, I just want to know, George, I don't know if you can hear me, but the screen isn't showing my laptop screen. Often ends up videotaping that, so.
Okay.
And I have the plan up. But go ahead. I just wanted to let them know. Hopefully
Okay.
you heard.
So I don't know if this is recorded, but the project is located on Nininger Road for the public between Dunderberg Road and Bakertown Road, and it's located in the HI zoning district. It's a mixed-use development, as Dan explained, in a single building with approximately 408,000 square feet with 4 floors. The parking is provided on 3 tiers, and that involves 653 parking spaces. The plan also includes utilities, stormwater management facilities, lighting, and landscaping. And the uses inside the building, as Dan explained, are office space on the 1st and 2nd floors, and hotel and office use on the 3rd and 4th floors. The building is set back from Nininger Road about 485 feet, and that kind of makes it less prominent for drivers on Nininger Road and Route 17. The building is designed to kind of fit into the topography of the property with 4 floors exposed in the front of the building and 2 floors on the back of the building. So the elevations are higher in the back. This is a hillside, and the building is kind of put into the topography. The building has 3 entrances, the front, a side, and a rear entrance, all on different levels. And the project also includes an extensive landscaping plan, which is shown here. That's provided in the plan set in the DEIS. And the areas around the entrances are heavily landscaped, and a park-like area is provided south of the building that has a water feature and extensive landscaping there. The project will involve impact to wetlands. The wetland is here along Nininger Road. We preserved as much as we could of the wetland. There's retaining walls around it, and a wetland mitigation plan is provided in the DEIS, which provides for extensive planting around the wetland area, enhancing the functions of the wetland. I'll just go through 2 changes which occurred after the scoping was done. And one was 2 driveway connections are provided now from this site to the adjoining residential development, the VMG development. And so in terms of cars can pass through here, but also sidewalks will be extended from this site into the VMG property, allowing for taking vehicles off the road and allowing pedestrians to access the site from the neighboring residential development. The second change was originally in the scoping document, we discussed a well that was going to provide water for the project. And that was changed. The applicant worked with the village of Curious Joel to provide water, municipal water, for the project, which will reduce the demand on the local aquifer for water supply. I'll just briefly touch on the architecture. Okay.
George, did you hear about my connection, that it's not coming up on the screens? Is there
Okay.
anything we need to do?
So the building is a modern design with stone, white stone, stucco, glass, and metal trim. And this is the front view which is seen from 9-inch Road. And again, the parking in the rear of the building is at a higher elevation, and visitors to the building will enter on the second floor, actually the third floor in the rear of the building. I just want to show this is a photo simulation of the building in the landscape. This is Ninninger Road, the Bracken Mann building, and this is the proposed Monroe Commons building here. And of course, this is a photo simulation, but there will be trees planted as part of the landscaping plan, both along the frontage, in the parking areas, and in the wetland mitigation area. So I'd like to turn it over to Vince to just go over some of the site plan issues.
Yes, hold on. Yes?
That little box, is the red light on? That's on the dais?
Now it is. Oh, I think it is. Yes, no.
Yes, no.
It started to. Let me just make sure okay. We got it up, thank you. Thanks, George. Okay.
The project site is an 18-acre site with all of the infrastructure improvements on the Monroe parcel. We are extending the grading into the Woodbury site to the east of us. The property is bordered on the northwest by the village of Curious Joel, and on the east by Woodbury, and on the southwest by Ninninger Road. A complete stormwater pollution prevention plan has been designed following the New York State DEC regulations to mitigate the impacts of both water quality and quantity at peak flows. Soils testing was conducted on site to ensure infiltration practices are acceptable. A full erosion controls and sediment plan have been designed and will be followed through the construction of the project. An 8-inch ductile iron water main will loop around the entire building with 5 fire hydrants and a direct fire connection into the building's sprinkler system. This system will connect to the Village of KJ's central water system in the adjoining VMG project. The system will be submitted to Orange County Department of Health for review and approval. The sewer is located in the Orange County Sewer District, and the project will connect also to the adjoining VMG project. The building's top 3 floors will connect with a gravity line sewer system, while the first floor will require a sanitary pump station. This will be submitted to the Orange County Sewer District for review and approval.
Time for some traffic. Everyone's favorite. I think we'll start with, great. Thank you. We'll start with the study area. We had looked, based on the scoping document, at 3 intersections. Again, Ken Worsted from Creighton Manning Engineering, traffic consultant for the project. We looked at 3 intersections on County Road 105. Obviously the side driveway on Dunneberg, or Ninninger Road and Dunneberg, and then 4 intersections over by the new interchange with Route 32 and Route 17. When we started this project, we were in the pandemic. We had to source our traffic counts from a number of different locations. Some were from the traffic study for VMG, some were done for the comprehensive study for the village of KJ, and others included the design report for the interchange reconstruction project. And we supplemented that with some new traffic counts that were taken kind of during a little bit, during the pandemic. And then we followed DOT's guidance on how to manage that information. At the time, The reconstruction project was just finishing and the pandemic was starting. So we tried to find the sweet spot of 2019, which was kind of after the construction was done, but before the pandemic hit. So we tried to even out all our traffic volumes to that condition. And then that served as our basis moving forward. We added in a growth rate for the project, and then we identified over 24 other projects that are kind of ongoing in the area. About half of them were here in the village of KJ, town of Palm Tree, and the other half of them were a mix of town of Woodbury, town of Monroe, Harriman, village of Monroe, and then a few others scattered out a little bit further, like Legoland and a project out in Chester. With that, that gave us our future traffic volumes, but without the project. So then we had to estimate how much traffic was coming from this actual proposal. And essentially, it's a large kind of shopping center, but it's unique in that it's catering to the residents of KJ. So we looked at 2 locations within the village. One is at 51 Forest, that's kind of their village center. There's a shopping center there. And then also another one at 4852 Bakertown Road. That's right next to the Park and Ride as you come into the village. And so we did traffic counts of those 2 facilities, looked at how many cars came in and out, looked at the square footage that they have in those buildings, and developed a local trip generation rate for those. We established that, but we also looked at ITE, and ITE is basically the industry standard. It's unique in that it's looking at properties across the US, and it's the industry standard for estimating traffic from a project that doesn't exist yet by looking at other ones. So ITE is going to be more familiar with like the Walmart and the Target, those types of shopping centers, and less so this business center that's focused in on the community. Irregardless, we had used the ITE rates in our traffic study, but we did a comparison to the 2 local centers, and the ITE rates were about the ITE rates were about 35% to 80% higher than the local rates, and then on the Sunday peak hour, they're about even, they're about the same. So we used the ITE rates just to offer that conservative analysis. With that, we distributed the traffic through the study area. We had about 60% going to the west on Integer Road, 40% going to the east. That then splits up a little bit down County Road 105 into the village, a majority going up into the village of KJ, and then the 40% coming out here, splitting up Route 32, getting onto Route 17, some coming down towards Harriman. So that gave us the amount of traffic that the site is generating. We added that on top of the traffic that would be out here without the project, and then we do a comparison. We look at the project, we look at the traffic that is there before the project, and then we look at it afterwards. That's the before and after. And we go through and look at each of these intersections, and we do an analysis before and afterwards, and then that delta tells us what the impacts are. So as we went through and did that, obviously the interchange is brand new. It's got a lot of capacity to it. Very little change out here, but some of the movements will increase, particularly at the Route 32 intersection that lets you get on to Ninninger Road. So right at the corner there of the schools. Coming down here to Ninninger Road in Dunderberg, that intersection is very tight. There's only 1 lane in each direction. But previously it's been identified as part of the VMG project to widen Ninninger Road. Those plans have been submitted to the county to provide a left turn lane. So if you're eastbound on Ninninger, you'll sit in a left turn lane to go up towards the high school. Through traffic will go right by it. A traffic signal has already been installed there. As we come around to the site area, we identified some challenges with where the site driveways are located through there. Those driveways, one of them has really good site distance, the other has some limitations. So with that, we recommended some driveway restrictions, and the volume generated warrants a traffic signal. So we said, let's put the driveway limitations over at the left-hand side, or the left-hand driveway that you have there, and then the traffic signal would go at the right-hand drive. And then on Ninninger Road, it would be very similar to the VMG, where the road widens out to provide a left turn lane, so that if you're turning left to come into the site, you have a refuge area, and if you're through traffic, you're just driving by it. Then coming down to the Bakertown County Road 105 area, there are some improvements proposed there. I believe the village is also working on widening Bakertown Road down to 105. A traffic signal was already installed as part of the VMG project. At Dunderberg Road, or at Ninninger Road and Bakertown County Road 105, that intersection is feeling more pressure from the traffic going through there. There is also a proposal to extend essentially Ninninger Road across that area to connect with Dodge Boulevard. So that design is underway. And then coming down County Road 105 to the Freeland Spring Street daycare, that intersection we looked at, and generally it's okay, but it could use a southbound left turn lane. So if you're going into the daycare, you're sitting there waiting, you're blocking everyone behind you. Not a lot of traffic going in and out of there, but when it does, it's going to drop, it's going to slow down a lot of people behind you. That's generally kind of the overall plan with the project. We did look at a couple of different sorry, is it? No, over here. So we looked at the circulation of the project, and this one's this will illustrate it a little bit better. There are two connections over to the VMG development that allow cars, pedestrians to go through, but it will also allow for transit to be enhanced through the area. So VMG is only partially built out, but as that continues to be built out towards this property, buses from interior to the village can come through that site and go through the VMG project and come to the Monroe Commons project. We've established some potential bus stop locations. We don't know where the buses are going to be routed. The transit agency has to determine that, but we've made accommodations to have them circulate through the site and come up to the front of the building, even the side of the building, and do drops and pickups from there. Sidewalks throughout the site and around the building, allowing access to come through, and then obviously pedestrian access over to the VMG project. Now, the people who potentially are walking from here are coming through the VMG project. They've got a series of, we'll call it east-west parallel roads through there. And when we get to the County Road 105 intersection, they have to cross at grade with the traffic light. So there's push buttons there and everything else. Now, as part of that project, as they hit a milestone of about 800 units halfway through their project, they're required to put in a pedestrian bridge. So that bridge would come across and allow the pedestrians to cross over that intersection without using the buttons. They'll just ramp up and come down the other side. So that connection will carry them through there. So locally, anyone in the village area will be able to come through and use that to gain access through it. We had looked at the school operations. Obviously, we've got an elementary school off of 32. We've got a middle school. We've got a high school all through there. There's not going to be any direct impact to the school, other than there's going to be more traffic out here on Ninninger and Dunderberg. And so with that, the roadway improvements will help relieve any issues there. The Monroe Commons Center typically won't overlap with the school peaks. Potentially on a Friday afternoon, when the school may be letting out, the project here will be a little bit busier than normal, but typically it's not going to overlap with those. So that's a general overview. Certainly, as the public and anybody provides questions, we'll answer those as they come in.
For that.
And nobody fell asleep, right? Okay, thank you.
So, thank you for the presentation, and I have a little outline here. My thought is that, actually, before we even open it up, so the order of business was going to be any public comments. Then I'll turn to Ashley, just in terms of what the process will be going forward. I want to acknowledge Aaron, who's here representing AKRF. Thank you for being here. Any comments you may have, then Sean, and then the planning board members. I know we're in the seeker process and there's more time to provide the comments, but that's where we are right now. So before we actually start, did you touch upon, and as I was jotting down notes, I may have missed it, any improvements in Woodbury that might be occurring to accommodate the project in terms of the grading, et cetera?
Yeah, that's all that's happening in Woodbury, is we're grading that portion behind the building into
Okay.
the site.
So any changes to the design? Were there going to be retaining walls? Because that was somewhat in flux, so I wasn't sure where things stood engineering-wise on that.
I believe that's why we're doing the grading, so that we didn't need the retaining walls in the back. Let me just verify that.
And what's the latest dates?
The latest plan set is 7/25,
Okay,
and yes, that is the reason we're grading into Woodbury, so that we do not need any retaining walls back there.
okay, thank you. All right, so with that, I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone here who would like to come up to the microphone and raise any comments? Kind of can't see people behind the, the boards. Is it just Mike? Okay, thank you. All right. So with that, I will turn it over to Ashley. If you want to just go give a brief overview of the timeframes where we are. And anything else you want to add?
Sure. So as far as I know, I think there was only one written comment received from Village of Woodbury.
Yes.
So you have that one comment from Village of Woodbury asking that the public comment period be held open till the 15th to give them a chance to submit comments. Other than that, you haven't received anything. You do have to leave the public hearing open for, the public comment period open for a minimum of 10 days following the close of the public hearing, or at least 30 days from filing and circulating the notice of completion, whichever's later. So here, the notice was filed on the 30th of October, and the circulation occurred on the 31st and the 3rd, so the earliest date would be December 3rd. And the village is asking that that be extended through the 15th. But it would be appropriate this evening, given the public attendance this evening, or lack thereof, to close the public hearing, but keep the written comment period open to whichever date you determine.
Thank you for that. All right, so with that then, Aaron, did you have any comments or anything you want to raise this evening in particular?
Working?
Yes, when it's red.
Okay,
it's-
got it. Yeah, Aaron Werner, AKRF, consultant for the town on the project, along with several others that aren't here tonight, but I'm representing the consultant group. So we're still reviewing the complete DEIS. We're planning, the goal is to have our comment memos out next week. The comment period was originally set for 10 days after the hearing. We were trying to get our comments before that comment period is up, so that's still the goal. So I don't have anything I can offer tonight. We are, our traffic consultant, our traffic engineer is reviewing the traffic piece, which is probably the biggest portion of the whole document. You also have your wetlands, natural resources consultant, CHA, who's reviewing things. We have the landscape architect. We have Weston and Sampson, Sean. So it's all under review. I think there was one thing I wanted to raise, which had to do with the geotech, and I think, Sean, you asked for them to actually do a little bit. Is there an
Yes.
update
So
on that work?
At one of the meetings, I know there was talk about you were doing some additional borings. There was going to be an additional geotech report submitted. at some point before the FEIS, so that Sean would have an opportunity to comment on that, and then his comments be addressed in the FEIS. So I don't know the status of that or anticipated date for when that might be submitted. If it's not going to be, I think, in the immediate future, I'd suggest that whatever you extend the public comment, written comment period to this evening, you afford, Sean, and the applicant agrees that Sean could have however much time he thinks he might need from when that's submitted to give comments on that as well, to be addressed in the FEIS.
And I think we also, so I literally was going through that as well. It was one of my comments to bring up. I think at the meeting where it was discussed, for completeness, there was a discussion about a long or a lag time to be able to even get to do it, which was going to be like 6 to 8 weeks. And so we also discussed perhaps having an FEIS public hearing to be able to offer comments if necessary as well. So it's not just comments from Sean, but comments from anybody else that might want to comment on the geotech.
It was specifically for the need for blasting.
Correct.
For the building foundation.
Right, and it was that the depth of the exploration didn't go as far down as the depth of the foundation, I believe, which is why there was a question, I guess the discussion was about boulders versus bedrock, and so additional information was needed. I think that was the gist of the conversation. So, so we would want a status on where the geotech was, because that was one of those items that we deferred that was substantive in nature, but we said we would wait so that we could get to completeness, but ensure that that gets integrated into the FEIS.
Right, I think we had understood that would be part of the FEIS.
It was supposed to be submitted before the
Before the
FEIS, so that
FEIS.
Sean could give comments, that his comments could then be addressed in the FEIS.
Correct. That was what was discussed. It's in the minutes.
Right.
You don't have to respond now. It's just, it's going to be an item that we'll be bringing up.
Understood. I guess we're hoping that, hoping first your planning board could close the public hearing this evening in light of, seems to be not a lot of public interest in this. We anticipate most of the comments or the bulk of the substantive comments will come from your board's consultants. So I guess we're hoping we'll have those next week, and we're on to see if we could maybe schedule a meeting for the following week, so we can start going over those. We'd like to get going on the FEIS as soon as possible.
So we'll talk about schedule going forward, but we wanted to touch upon the geotech.
Yeah.
We'll go back to
It's-
Aaron for any other comments he may have this evening.
Yeah, so I think, whatever you decide the end of the written comment period is going to be, I think we would just make sure that anything that comes, that's it, we catalog it, we make sure that the applicant gets a copy of all the comments. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of public comment anticipated on this one. So the comments may just be our memos. It sounds like Woodbury wants to issue some comments. If the planning board wants to take the time between now and the end of the written period to submit their individual comments, that would be the time to do it. And then I think the applicant can then start cataloging the comments based on the record, like what's in the transcript, what's in all the memos, categorizing them by what topic they're going to cover, assign them a special number for the FEIS, and then they can share that with us, and we can confirm that, yes, you've captured everything, you can start working on the FEIS now. That's usually how we like to do things when we're consulting with boards, is to have the applicant take the first crack at, here's our full comment catalog, so to speak. Here's the topics each one's covering, here's the number that we'll assign it, and so it's organized in a way that, because all those comments are going to be in the appendices of the FEIS, so that you can see that they've been addressed. So I guess it's just a matter of, when is that comment period up? Is it the 1st or is it the 15th? And that's when the applicant can go ahead and prepare that catalog for us. They can discuss comments with us, but you might want to use the December meeting to officially acknowledge that they've cataloged everything appropriately and they're free to start preparing that FEIS.
Right, thank you for that. Sean, did you have anything you want to raise this evening?
Nothing specific that we haven't touched on, but we'll be providing our memos next week.
All right, planning board members, any comments this evening with regard to the EIS? No. Okay. And I think we'll talk about whether we need additional time for our own comments. But I will, based on the presentation and some thoughts I had, did have some questions or comments. Where are we with the agencies in terms of New York State DOT and Army Corps in particular? Has New York State DOT reviewed the proposed improvements? Has the FEIS gone to them? Have there been meetings with them? And same thing with Army Corps. Is there any kind of jurisdictional determination, and are they going to be okay with the mitigations?
Right. I can only address, well, I'll address the Army Corps. So the Army Corps did review the proposed, either the delineation and the mitigation plan. They had a 45-day comment period that lapsed, and the Army Corps did reply, and that's in the DEIS, that the mitigation plan is basically approved. I'll defer to Ken about discussions with the DOT.
It's just, so John, so the Army Corps, didn't we get a permit?
Yes, we got
Other permit?
the jurisdictional determination, yes, and basically a sign-off on the wetlands permit. Nationwide, yeah.
Relative to the DOT, we don't have any improvements proposed as part of that, so we're not expecting to need any permits from them. A large part of all the roads around here are going to go through Orange County for their review. I think most of the impacts are all relative to their roads primarily.
And then, so then where are they on any review? The county, has there been coordination with them?
We'll have to regroup on that, but
Okay.
I haven't had any direct conversation with them saying like, here's, the traffic study and the scoping or the impacts. So as part of the review DEIS process, I think if it's deemed complete, then it'll be, I'm assuming, submitted as part of the interagency review.
Yeah, it would have been circulated, but I know that as part of the FEIS process and before we get to completion of the FEIS and we get to the findings, in general, we'd like to have something from the county saying, they agree, they disagree, where do they stand on those mitigations, because they'll have to get incorporated into the findings. So I wasn't sure if you were having any offline, coordination meetings, but I would definitely encourage those to occur if it hasn't happened yet.
I know it can take some time, and there's a voluminous amount of material here to look at.
Right.
So
Agreed. And we talked about Woodbury fire access. So the secondary, so there's two accesses, one to the west, one to the east. The one to the west that's more restricted, that's the one with the site distance limitations?
correct.
And is that, did you say an out only, or it's an in and out?
It would allow for left and right turns to come in
Okay,
and right turns out only. So if you're pulling out, you've got great sight distance looking to your left, not so great looking to your right up the hill.
okay,
So you'd be allowed to turn right to go out because you can look to your left and that's good.
okay.
But for you to turn left out of the driveway and looking up the hill is more of a hindrance. So you can do that from the easternmost driveway.
So my question, and this relates to VMG. So is VMG, the drives that come in to that development, are they full access so that anyone can come in and out of that development?
Yes. Yep, there's no gates. It's
Okay.
not a gated community. Right now, I don't know that their Ninninger Road entrance is open to the public because it's kind of it's on the border of the construction area and the existing residences.
So this gets to my question about accesses then into this project. With the two connections that exist into the project from VMG and the fact that they also have an access from Ninninger, do you really need two, or is one sufficient because of the two connections you have to the adjoining project? Do you really need those two access points onto Ninninger? And a corollary to that is the Brockman building that adjoins your property has this little mini access next to it. And in the best of all worlds, it would be nice if they tied into this project, if possible, so that they come out of one access point. So I didn't know whether there had been any discussions or thoughts about seeing whether they could be coordinated somehow. Just because it seems kind of, it's this one little access point, it's going to be in between two, probably, fairly major intersections. So I'd like that explored if possible. I know we all know Mr. Mr. Mann, who frequents our planning board meetings, so I'm sure, if you need a contact, we could get in touch with them. But I'm just thinking about in terms of Nininger and overall, kind of how those accesses work. When you talked about the daycare center, that intersection, and you said that that left turn, I think, into the daycare may bottle up some of the traffic there. Was there going to be then a proposal to add a left turn lane in or some improvement there as part of this project? Or who would be responsible for anything that might happen there?
Yeah, it was identified as part of this impact study.
Okay.
We've also been doing work for Orange County and looked at a number of different intersections around the county, and that particular one was one of them. So we identified improvements both in the signal design that's there currently, but also forecasted future traffic volumes, trying to go through there, and improvements, to the intersection. So I don't know if it would be fully part of this project or part of a county initiative, but between those studies, we identified coming southbound on County Road 105, the left turn, widening the road to provide a left turn to go into the daycare. That way through traffic can continue going by past it. And then the right turn would continue down.
So I guess as part of the mitigation then, it's going to be important in the FEIS to be clear on who's responsible for what. Is it something that Monroe Commons is going to do, or is it something that they'll do a fair share? And I guess that's part of all the coordination with the county, but we'll want to definitely know who's responsible for it.
Certainly.
Yeah, Bonnie, I had a similar question, because you mentioned there wasn't any planned direct permits required from DOT as a direct impact to this project, but the basis of your traffic assessment was derived from several road improvements along all of your control points there. So something I just wanted to correlate and see how we would handle.
And that was another improvement besides the one by the daycare is over by the high school. If there's going to be improvements there, when do they, to that intersection to make it function well, when does that get done relative to this project? What are the timing? And is it needed for this project? So, because obviously that's very important to us. That's our main, our major main school district, and access has to be adequate to be able to get in and out of that intersection and not to have to get backed up in traffic. So that'll be very important in terms of our review. We talked about VMG, we talked about the geotech, Woodbury improvements. In general, for me, I have been expressing that I'm not a big fan of the white facade because, if anything, we like things to be more earth tone colors in tune with the environment. So in the best of all worlds, I would prefer to see something that's a different color. So I'm just going to throw that out there now. It's interesting looking at that particular graphic. That almost looks like a darker color, which I like, but I think that's supposed to be a dusky, rendering compared to the other. So if it was darker like that, I'd actually, I think it would fit more into the environment. But right now, that bright white, it's just not working for me. We see a lot of the development from our scenic viewpoints here in the town of Monroe looking over toward that area, and it just all sticks out. And so we really want to try and get something, and I think I've been pretty consistent in saying something that fits into the environment. Then in terms of the grading that's being done for the Village of Woodbury and the Village of Woodbury, I want to know to what extent anything can be vegetated, long-term, whether it's trees, shrubs, how is that going to be reclaimed? So I want to know the details on that. And getting back to the geotech, I had raised this, and I know, Vince, you know this, that when you were working on that project in the town of Monroe, you found that there was excess cut that you had to deal with at Smith Farm. And, so in the best of all worlds with the geotech, the grading, et cetera, we really want to know what that, and I know you didn't work on that project, originally. But for this one, we really want to know what the quantities are, because we don't want to end up with all this excess and then a request to put it somewhere on the site. And I think we said this at a prior meeting, if there's excess, it has to go somewhere else.
And where does it go? Does it go somewhere else in the town, or,
Or-
that's going to
right.
require a SWIP or something like that? So-
Exactly. So those are my immediate comments. Anybody, again, anything get raised that you're thinking of as we talk about this? Or, I know people have to go through still the documents and.
Well, I was thinking about this project today as I was approaching Larkin Drive. Took me a long time to get just to Larkin Drive, going north. But it was a complete parking lot at Ninninger Road, 105, going down to the village. Nothing was moving. And
What time was that at?
And I know that, there's a lot of traffic today, but this was not, this was around, I guess, 11 o'clock or something like that. Kind of unusual at backed up at that time. So, we have a problem now. I can't imagine a fire truck or an ambulance trying to get through there today. And that's the way it is now. I think the 105, the extension of Ninninger Road across 105 would certainly help. I know that there was an initiative at one point to extend Larkin Drive through there. I don't know if that's still a possibility or not, but
Yeah,
of course,
to that point, does the DEIS touch upon, there's been a long-term discussion about taking Larkin and bringing it out toward, right, into the village toward 17, that interchange, but also on the other side, another through road on the KJ side. Does the EIS touch upon those improvements at all, or whether they're even real?
If you could pan your map over.
Yep.
So they're calling it the Dodge connector, but it's an extension of Ninninger Road right here through here. So that is in design right now. And I recall the
There's
bigger
a
picture.
wetland there, isn't there? A big wetland?
Yes, they've gone through and gotten their DEC permits. It's a very skinny road, and it's elevated, so they're literally building like retaining walls to hold the road up, to go through it. So, but I recall like the bigger picture idea that you're talking about is taking Larkin and carrying it through to there, and I think that was a county-wide, initiative. I don't know that it's gone anywhere or it had the means to be completed. I know that the community's got schools over here. More recently, there was a question of connecting, this is, I think this is Forest Road right over here.
Right.
Connecting through,
That's connecting, right,
yeah, Skirmerhorn Road here, connecting from here
Yes,
over to there.
because the village of KJ purchased that property.
Yep, they
in
have
there.
all of this, and then there's like one little corner piece that they would need there. And they've been talking to the county about trying to promote that and make that a real possibility. That's primarily going to help these intersections over here, the triangle.
Yeah, I think the big bottleneck is 105 by the police headquarters area, and I think there's something much more long-term that's needed there coming into the village.
Yes, I agree, and, you know, you have the traffic light at 105 and the road going into the village, then you have another, you know, stop sign. It's, that was a big backup today. So, and, you know, that's ad hoc, but there's a lot of ad hoc experiences that I've had going down 105 there.
So with that, in terms of our options, we can close the public hearing part of this, but we can allow comments to be extended. The Village of Woodbury requested until when? December 15th.
Madam Chair, I mean, we would be okay if Woodbury needs until December 15th, but we would ask that the written comment period not be extended that long, I think.
So I know as a planning board member, I'd like to be given to the 15th as well. And then I would defer to the planning board whether you think we need to allow or afford additional time for any additional written comments. So let me ask you, when we talk about written comments, this is excluding agency comments. If they comment, you're going to respond to them, or you wouldn't if we close?
Look, obviously, if the agencies submit comments, we're always going to have to deal with them. I think we're looking forward to getting the FEIS prepared as soon as possible. That's why we're hopeful to have your board's consultants' comments next week, and are looking to schedule a meeting, if we could, the following week, so we can get going on that.
I think
I think if your board sets a deadline for the outside agencies, that's helpful, because I think that,
Yeah.
you know, that gives an outside deadline, so we're not dragging this out.
So I would say, or my recommendation would be that we give Woodbury and the planning board members till the 15th, if they have any comments. And then perhaps for other agencies, or do we just acknowledge that
I think it would just be, you would extend the written comment period to
to the
the
15th?
15th.
Okay,
And that would
period.
allow, you know, I don't anticipate there being really any public comments,
No,
but that would
I don't
really
either.
be for the agencies and for the planning board members. You do
Okay.
have a planning board meeting on December 14th, so if you wanted to even place them on the agenda to have the planning board discuss their comments rather than give written ones, I think.
There's that opportunity. Okay. So we're going to then, I will make a motion that we close the public hearing itself this evening, and that we allow an opportunity for written comments to be received until December 15th. Anything on that? Any discussion?
I agree.
That would be, that they would be received December 15th by
End of day,
end of day, which is that
5 p.m.?
4 p.m.
4 p.m. Okay, by 4 p.m. May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen? I did the first. I made the motion. Unless I said
Bonnie Franson,
aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Aye.
Bob Garzak.
Okay, with that, the motion carries. Is there anything else we need to address this evening as far as process, seeker?
Well,
I think the
again,
geotech, I don't know when that's going to be, but
You know,
the
so-
idea was to have that to Sean so that he could give comments that will then be addressed in the
My understanding is that
FEIS.
is underway and we should have that fairly shortly. It's certainly, I mean, I don't think it's going to be by the 15th, but we will work with Sean to make sure that he has that before we prepare the FEIS.
Okay,
I think that's what you're looking
So,
for.
yeah, just that you'll allow him an opportunity to give comments on that before before you submit the FEIS. That's the idea, because it's obviously going to be beyond the 15th.
Yes, so that Sean would have a chance to comment on the geotech report before we submit the FEIS. FEIS. And again, that's what we're looking for, is to see if we could schedule a meeting, with your board and its consultants as soon as
Oh,
possible.
we need
What's that?
that report first before you could.
Well, I don't think the report's the only, that report goes to a limited issue. It goes to blasting. I think in our opinion, we've submitted sufficient information. We understand your board wants more, and we're willing to accommodate, but I don't think that should in any way hold up the rest of the comments on the FEIS or, going forward.
So our consultants indicated within the next week, they would be likely have them complete, so that's forthcoming. And so it's not going to be a lot of additional comments necessarily by the 15th. Woodbury may have some comments, but frankly, part of the project is in the Village of Woodbury, so I think that if they have comments, they should be afforded that opportunity. Agencies, I think they need to weigh in, and if they don't weigh in by the 15th, we need them to weigh in for the finding statement itself to make sure they're okay with what's being recommended, because it's their highways, et cetera.
We understand, we hope so. At the end of the day, some agencies don't respond. It's just
We have pretty good track record, so,
great.
and we know the
I
people
guess-
in the county.
As far as the geotech, so you'll have the other consultant comments before then, but can we say 2 weeks after that's submitted to give Sean an opportunity to give comments?
I got to talk to the consultant to find out how soon that's going to be ready. But you're saying
Oh,
you've
it's
done
2 weeks after receipt.
After receipt,
after receipt for you to weigh in. I think that's appropriate. I think that we can live with that.
that's reasonable. We amend our resolution to reflect that, or no?
I was wondering if we could make the geotech, actually, can we make that part of the ultimate, connect it more into the findings and maybe because, again, it goes to a very limited issue. It goes to whether or not blasting is required.
I think
Yeah, but that's an important issue. We talked about that. If they wanted it to be part of the DEIS, we said that you could do it before the FEIS, so this was already, an accommodation, so I don't think that would
Right.
be
Agreed.
appropriate.
That DEIS complete subject to that geotech being done between draft and final.
Yes. Oh. All right, anything else?
Are we expected, should we plan on being before your board on this December 14th meeting?
So
there was
that,
a suggestion.
so was that intended to go through any comments, or because you weren't going to have an FEIS ready by that time?
I think that would be if the planning board had any comments, but you could just do written comments,
Right.
yeah.
But in other words, you weren't going to start drafting, or in other words, when you got the consultant comments, did you think that you would be coming in for clarifications,
Well, I don't
so that
think
you could
needs
prepare
to
the
be a planning
FEIS?
board meeting. I think that, we have
Yes.
communication with your consultants directly, and we're hoping to set up once we have your comments and have digested them, we'd like to set up be able to speak directly to your consultants as we did with the DIS.
But then on
I
the,
think that it was something Ashley had suggested as an accommodation to your board, if it would be easier to relay, for your board members to relay their comments verbally rather than in writing. If I
Really up to you
up
and
to
the board.
Does
They
the
could-
board want this to be on the agenda for the 14th, or do you think you'll have written comments? Do you want an opportunity to?
No, just the opportunity to review their comments of our consultants and, allow a couple of days for us to get those in written form. That's all I ask.
Part of the whole FEIS process. So did you think you need another meeting to be able to verbally discuss the project and any comments you have on the environmental impact statement that so far? See, part of the problem is we don't have several of our board members here, so I don't know if they would like to be afforded the opportunity to.
Maybe we'll speak to them and see, because they could just submit their own written comments.
Right.
But if there's a need for a meeting, then we'd let you know before then.
Yeah, so let's leave it
Keep
as,
flexible, but
yeah.
if you could let us know as soon as possible. 'cause
Sure.
Everyone's got other commitments too.
yes,
It's a tough time of year.
yes,
I've never known Jeff not to have some questions.
I know.
I just, say, thinking it's holiday party, it's our firm holidays party that night, but.
Oh, is it?
To see you all there.
All right. Is there anything else? We're good? All right.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for your patience waiting for us. with our quorum snafu. Oh, were you? Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Have a great Thanksgiving. All right, next item on the agenda, Pilati Village.
Okay, it's on.
I will bring up, I think we have some comments on that. We have both architectural and engineering comments, I believe. Let's take a 2-minute break, just so they'll get themselves all organized, and I'll be right back. 2-minute break.
It's on your record there. Oh, really? Where was it?
Dating? I was out at the Sopus till 1 a.m. for planning board meetings, because they start at 7:30.
So
Just like
do we
Montgomery.
mention that you
Property up to
No, I'm a consultant. I'm the planner to the town. What's the infusion?
not asking you.
How long has it been going? Ready? All right, are we ready to go? 1 second. Okay, sure.
Dodge.
Okay. All right. George, you're good to go? Thank you. All right. Welcome. Where are we?
Where are we? So, quick update, we ended up landing the CCR zone with the town board. So we addressed some of the outstanding comments that were associated with the planning board consultants, in particular Sean's latest comment letter on the stormwater pollution prevention plan, and any of the other technical comments that were still outstanding. We've prepared a tree preservation plan. We prepared a master development plan. We've prepared a subdivision plan. For the most part, I think we've kind of checked off most of the items that are required for still the finalization of the plans for the CCR zone. It seems that we're down to, based on Sean's last comment letter, a lot of legal matters, easements, deed restrictions, things of that nature, which we certainly will work with our project attorney to work with Ashley's office and this planning board to develop those documents. So we did receive the latest comment letters, both architectural and site plan related technical comments. We don't take any exception to any of them, but if you'd like to review them quickly, we can certainly do that, and then we'll make a resubmittal. I don't know where, because it's already the 21st. I think the submittal deadline's the 30th. So my site plan related comments are not that much. There's a very good chance I could probably make a resubmittal for the 30th. I can't speak for our project attorney as it relates to like the deeds and easements of that nature, but we would like to have the board consider if it's possible in the month of December, since we're pretty close, the consideration for conditional final approval. The reason being, there's state funding involved for this particular applicant. End of the year is fast approaching. I don't know all the details of how it works, but essentially when they have to go to a new year, I don't know if they reapply and they get bumped to a different number on a list. So we would just try to do the best we can to work with the board and vice versa, to maybe look if we can try to tie this up in the month of December.
So with that, I'll ask Ashley and Sean if they have any comments, and then talk about timing, and specifically, we're at site plan at this point, so no need for a hearing, given all the other public participation process we were involved in. We did the neg deck, and we need a wetland permit.
Yes.
Permit?
Yep.
Do you have a special use permit or no? Because that was CCR. Okay. And did we need for the site plan to do GML, or was that done already?
It was done already.
Because
I
the
know I looked at this.
town
before
should
this
have done it on their own for the zone amendment, but I don't know, I don't recall if we did the referral,
meeting.
or if we even, yeah, we do, because we're by a county road. We did do it?
Did, and they gave advisory comments.
Okay. Just trying to get the check boxes here in terms of an approval.
Sure.
Okay, so Ashley, do you want to touch upon any comments and/or process, and then Sean can go through his comments?
So as far as process goes, you did, as you said, the neg deck, the town board then adopted Local Law 9 of 2023 to land the CCR zone on the property, and that law did have some conditions of landing the zone. The first was that the applicant must demonstrate compliance satisfactory to the planning board with the comments in the April 19th, 2023 report that came from the planning board. It was a letter from me to the town board. They would have to demonstrate compliance with 5794, including site plan approval, any conditions. There's certain required conditions set forth in the CCR regulations that would be a condition of any approval. They would have to comply with the elements of the MDP, payment of all fees, and compliance with any approved resolution by any board related to the project. As far as the April 19th, 2023 letter, the applicant did submit a response with this latest submission, going through that. It was 10/24/23 is the date of that. So I did have just some comments on a few of those items. I don't know if you wanted to pull up their response letter, and I could kind of walk through those.
I don't-
Is it okay if I turn this TV facing me?
Yeah, sure. It would have been October.
Yeah, it would have been part of their October submission. It would be called,
I don't think I have it loaded up here. Was it sent to my regular? You do both? All right, let me
I
check
could
here.
send it to you if you want.
Yeah. Oop. Just gonna fix this. All right. Let me see if I can find it real quick on my regular. I seem to recall it coming through. This is for November.
Just emailed it as well.
Perfect. So that's the response? Is that also the link to the plans?
This is just the response letter for now.
Okay.
Did you come unplugged?
I'll plug it back in.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize because all of a sudden your mic screen.
Does the Dropbox link have the responses as well?
It should. Let me check on my phone.
Mission narrative, transmittal letter, neg deck, OP8, OP8RF, master development plan.
I think that,
Why is this not?
So I have.
Oh, that's a really old Dropbox.
In that Dropbox link, there's a response letter 2023-10, which responds to the April 29th letters from Ashley's office, and appears to be the February 7th SWIP from Sean's office.
I'll do the letter.
All right, yeah, but I'm not. It hasn't come through yet. You just refresh. You sent that to my. Okay. Hasn't come through. In the meantime, let me see what happened.
Sent it on October 26th.
Also send it separately, Mike? Maybe I'm looking under Mike, not Noreen.
Yeah, I think I only emailed Noreen and I delivered the hard copies. That's the only two ways it was transmitted.
Bill? That's it. October 20.
35 p.m.
That one has have the.
The letter's part of that Dropbox.
Also. Hasn't come through. I think, Ashley, your file isn't big, right?
No, the letter's a few kilobytes.
I could just start, maybe.
Yeah, why don't you do that, and then I'll bring it up if I can. I'm going to also check my Monroe. Maybe that's going fast.
The first comment that the board had was that the applicant should demonstrate they'll meet the 20% minimum of proposed workforce housing, and that they should identify where they'd be located, types of units, et cetera. So it looks like they are committing to over 20% based on my calculation. Is that correct? It looks like about 46.
It's actually 24%.
36 of,
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading the text here on, it's approximately 24% of affordable one-bedroom units. That was the text associated with
Okay.
Building 1 and the 4 one-bedroom units. So, yeah, we are
I
essentially.
think it's almost 50, 46.2.
Correct, yes, yes.
And as far as identifying where they'd be, they said that they would be distributed throughout. So I think that was what the board was looking for, and you could likely incorporate, some language in any condition to require that. Next item was the affordability agreement that they say has been provided to the town for review. I would just note that it has to also provide for, the section requires not only provide for the enforcement of the affordability, but also restrictions on senior housing. So I don't know if that was accomplished by that same document, or if that's another document that you'll need to submit to the town board.
Yeah, I'll double check that, and I'll make sure.
And also, are you proposing a deed restriction or comparable means to enforce that agreement?
We'll include that if it's not in there.
Okay. Next was so the code requires all of the parcels to be merged before you could give site plan approval. So they did say that they would be merged after the planning board reviews the subdivision layout. So I think you do need a site plan showing what it looks like all merged. You do need to, I understand they are going to go for the subdivision approval, but you first need to approve the site plan with all of the merged lots before you can approve a subdivision.
So with that, one of the things we had talked about was what's going to happen with the lake. And if the discharge points are related to this project and the lake.
For the wastewater?
For the wastewater, should that be part of the overall parcel? Because it's been kind of hanging out there by itself. And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to the sisters about that, but I remember discussing it, that right now I think the lake is a separate parcel. And the concern is, well, what happens if the lake gets sold, and then there's no control over it, yet that's also still the discharge point. I don't know. It just seems to me somehow, should the lake parcel be somehow related to these parcels?
That was something that was in your comment letter that I don't believe it was addressed in the response, but your April letter did recommend that the town board consider the location of the wastewater treatment plant in relation to the lake, and whether including the lake parcel in the CCR would increase the likelihood that it would be maintained in terms of water quality. But it's my understanding that it wasn't included as part of the CCR, so I don't know whether there's an ability to do that. If there was any discussions with the town?
I can discuss with the sisters to see if, as a part of the subdivision process, we can make the lake parcel a portion of the convent parcel.
It just attach it to something as opposed to being on
A
its
separate
own.
parcel. Okay.
And not, perhaps not even necessarily part of the multifamily, but part of the property that the sisters own.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the convent property.
I think that would be a kind of an agreeable maybe compromise, if that's possible, because that one isn't CCR.
No,
No.
no.
Okay. And speaking of that, when they did the rezoning, I don't know that the map was updated to reflect that rezoning yet. So which parcels specifically have been rezoned?
The CCR?
Yeah.
Because that,
The main parcel where all the development's happening, as well as where the convent is, those two parcels.
Convent is in the CC.
It is.
Okay. I would just want, so I think when you submit your maps, we need to see what the boundary of the zone looks like and how it relates to the lots that are going to be subdivided.
Okay, that might be on the,
It might be already on there?
yeah, I'll double check it.
Okay.
so with that, you will need to submit again, a plan showing them all merged for the actual site plan, and then after you get final site plan is when you can then get subdivision. And the subdivision will require a public hearing. So I don't know what the plan was as far as if merging the lots, if that was going to be just accomplished by filing with the assessor, or?
It's 5 lots, but I think all of them are over 5 acres.
But from our town code, is that in our town code? Does it say anything about 5 acres? I'm not thinking realty subdivision, but how is it characterized? Because if it's a major, I think we need preliminary and final.
So minor is anything containing not more than 4 lots, fronting on an existing street, not involving any new street or road. Is it 5 or 4 lots?
5 lots?
Proposed.
That's a major. 5?
I'll take a look at it, see if I can,
You have the wetlands in the back as a separate lot that has no frontage. I'm not sure if that needs to be on a separate lot.
Well, so related to that, that was another question, is to who is the open space? Are we creating an open space lot that the town will control?
Theoretically, that would be an open space lot, as well as the soccer field would be on its own separate lot as well, which would be open space, presumably dedicated to the town.
And the open space, did the town say they wanted it, or do we know what's happening with it?
so we've contacted the Orange County Land Trust, they're not interested. Yes, they're not interested. I have another project, by the way, which they're not interested in either, so I don't know what's happening, but there's at least 2 of mine, pretty big projects too, that they're not interested in.
I know that Matt Decker, who was with Open Space Institute, is no longer there. So I don't know who's running Orange County Land Trust at this point in time,
Right.
but that might be part of it, just changes in administration. But then if Orange County Land Trust isn't interested, that doesn't mean, why can't it go to the town? Because the town's picking up a whole bunch of open space that could all be interconnected for trails, et cetera.
Well, the thought was, could there just be an easement on the back that could be,
Yeah, we could do it via easement.
beneficiary to the town?
Yep, and if the town's not interested, we could always just do a deed restriction on it by ourselves, but we would have no issue dealing with the town board and them owning that property.
It would need to be subject to a conservation easement in favor of the town and/or an acceptable alternative land trust or dedication to the town as parkland. So either an easement.
It's really open space, right? In other words, this CCR required open space. I just want to be careful about using the word parkland, because that's not the type of parkland, that's the fee in lieu of land parkland. That was the required open space versus having parkland, which was the soccer field.
That's what I was just reading from the code.
Okay, got it.
So essentially, the open space has to be either an easement in favor of the town or land trust or dedicated to the town.
I'll create a land trust. I'll create the Monroe Planning Board Land Trust.
And we'll donate.
And then we'll all hike on this property.
So I guess just to circle back there, I think it'd be good, you'd submit a site plan showing the lots all merge, and then also just address how how that's going to be accomplished before site plan approval? Would you be filing with the assessor?
It would be easiest if we did, to file with the assessor, I believe. We'd just eliminate the lot lines, and then you would file a subdivision map thereafter.
I guess in terms of timeframe, since
I understand the exercise of combining the lots so that we have contiguous area that's a part of the CCR zone, but it seems almost as an unnecessary step as well, since either if I combine all the lots and then I file a subdivision map, it accomplishes the same thing as either doing a lot line change or a subdivision map in one step, doesn't it? I mean, you do essentially accomplish the same thing. I understand the purpose of combining the lots, but I mean, and I take no exception to it. It's fine, we could do that, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
and it's just something that the code requires them to all be merged before you could give site plan approval. So I don't think
The code
the
says
board
that?
could. Yeah, the requirement for merger of component lots, the land must be combined into a single contiguous parcel at or prior to final site plan approval. The requirement for merger of component lots shall not prevent the subsequent subdivision as part of a project to accommodate single-family homes on fee simple lots, phases, or separate homeowners associations, or to support financing. So it does require the merger before final or at final site plan approval, and then you could do a subsequent subdivision. And I just don't think there's a way to vary that without.
Yeah, no, we'll follow the process. I just thought I would make that note. It would have been the same process if you would have just done this as a subdivision from the beginning without needing that intermediate step of combining the lots. We would get to the same, I think, end game as a result of just doing it as a subdivision or a lot line change, as long as we could prove we have contiguous parcels. But it's fine. We'll go through the step of combining them.
I'm just looking at, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on with my computer. Adjoining properties. This is part of Palisades Interstate Park Commission. So if the town didn't want the land, I guess in theory, it could go to Pipsy. I'm just throwing out concepts here as to make sure someone has it that.
I'll circle back with the town board regarding this matter as well.
Yeah, I would think they'd want it, but. So this is the one I think that's Pipsy? Oh, this is the golf course? Okay, never mind. I thought I was on the wrong parcel. This is the parcel. Yeah. And then this is privately owned here. And then this is privately owned. All right.
So the next comment is that within the 35% of lot area that's designated for development, 65% of that area, no more than 65% of that area can be covered with impervious surface, and the rest is to be comprised of landscape areas, lawns, or open space left substantially in the natural state. So I just had a comment that Sean should confirm that no more than 65% of the 35% has impervious surface, and also to confirm the total development area doesn't exceed the 35%. The next is regarding the building separation distances. So I just had a comment for Sean to confirm that the distance between the two principal buildings is not less than their average height. So for buildings 2 and 3, it sounds like they might not meet that based on the heights that are in the table, but I don't know whether that height is calculated pursuant to the code. I think Sean might have a comment in that.
Yeah, we asked Mike to provide those because the elevations that he's provided on the architecturals don't necessarily identify the peak, and the code defines the height of the buildings as the average of the height from the ground to the peak of the roof, all the way around the building. So
We'll double check that. We did, on the architectural plans, we do have elevations shown to the peak of the roof. And
not the ones that I had. Maybe you have a newer version that I don't have yet. But
I'll send you whatever the latest are, but
Sure.
they've been there since May. But we did show an elevation to the peak of the roof, And if you look at the site plan, I did show spot elevations at the midpoint of the two long sides of the building and spot elevations at the midpoint of the short sides of the building. So I used that to calculate average building height. And I'll double check them to make sure they're correct. But I do believe the numbers that are shown in the table are fairly accurate. And I think buildings 2 and 3, I think average building height's about 38 feet, 5 inches, and 4 inches respectively. So we can certainly meet that requirement and essentially add 7 more feet. I think I have 31.5 feet between the buildings right now. My thought process, I understand we have to comply with the code, but my thought process is you're going to see a building that's less than 30 feet tall in the front. I just thought that the gap between the two buildings would be rather large if I increase that to somewhere around 38 or 40 feet. Certainly can do it. It's not an issue. I can engineer that, but I don't necessarily know that we're going to be providing a better visual appearance. So I'll leave that to the board.
These are for the two buildings?
And the two multifamily
Family
buildings
ones?
in the back, right?
Okay.
So the Mike's point is that in the front of the building is the least height exposed, because the grade drops off to the back.
Right.
The code requires that a minimum, the distance between two principal buildings is not less than their average height. So I just don't know that that's, well, it's not something the board would be able to vary without a variance.
Say we would need to have a variance there?
I guess from what I'm hearing is we don't necessarily know what the average height is.
I think that's something that
Yeah.
needs to be, I guess, verified first, but
It may not need moved.
We need we have the peak, but not the average at this
Yeah.
point.
No, you have the average.
Oh, you do?
Yes, you do. I believe that, and I'll double check it, but I believe that number that's shown on that table is the actual average building height. This comment was there, so I made sure I was looking at it as I went through the town board process. So I'm pretty sure it's correct. Again, I can certainly expand that distance between the buildings to be whatever it's going to be, 38 and a half feet. I just don't think it's going to provide the proper visual appearance. That's all I'm suggesting to this board. You're going to have a big open gap between these two buildings. In my opinion, it'll be quite large, but if that's what the board would require, we'll do it. We're not interested in going for a variance for it, I can tell you that.
Yeah, so I think that's the key. It's, whether we like it or not, what does the code say?
It's what we have, yeah.
Yeah. And if we have it, we do. If we don't, then they need to be separated in the absence of a variance. So it is what it is.
Right. About what we want.
So we'll check that.
Yeah, we'll comply with it. Whatever it is, we'll comply with it.
Okay.
also on that, if you could show the distances between buildings 4 and 5, 5 and 6, and 6 and 7. I don't think I saw them delineated.
You mean the separation distance between the buildings themselves?
Yes, just to show that you meet that it's more than,
Okay, I understand what you're saying, yes, yeah.
that
And it's probably mostly between 5 and 6. That's,
Yeah, I wasn't thinking more or less front to back of the buildings. I was thinking more side to side of the buildings that applied to.
Let's just make sure.
We can look at that. I'm sure we comply with that, because I think those building heights are not very tall. They might be like 25 feet. So I think just the virtue of having the parking lots kind of in between gives me that separation, but I'll confirm it.
My other comment was that the letter didn't address that, including potentially the lake, so that's something we already spoke about that Mike said he'd check with the sisters on. So other than the board reviewing this letter to confirm that, their response is satisfactory to address all your comments, it's your normal site plan review. Harriman Heights is a scenic road, so you'll need to show the scenic road buffer and scenic road map notes. You do need a local wetlands permit application. The tree plan, it looked like there was going to be 375 trees removed, but doesn't say the number that's going to be replaced. One of the sheets indicated 286 will be planted, so if you could check those numbers and figure out if you're not doing the one-to-one, what you're doing there, give totals maybe, saying how many you're going to remove, how many you're going to plant, and if there's anything other than one-to-one, you know the tree law.
so both subdivision and the wetland permit, they require a public hearing? The wetland permits?
Subdivision does.
Because I thought we just did the public hearing for the wetland
Did I
permit on the
think
other.
I think it's discretionary, and you did it because you were having already all the
Everything,
others.
okay.
But let me check quick.
And refresh my memory again, I'm not sure if I heard you correctly, between a minor and a major subdivision, does a minor require a public hearing as well or not?
Both of them would require it, but the major subdivision's a two-step process, so that you go from preliminary and then you go to final.
Final, right?
Whereas I think minor, can we go right to final?
Final, I believe.
Okay.
Wetlands permit does require a hearing.
So in terms of approvals, then we're going to have to schedule public hearings, and we'll need the wetland permit application to
Okay.
even get that scheduled.
Okay.
So I mentioned the tree plans, if you could give the totals of those trees that are being removed, replaced, the tree plan notes. I think you might have them from one of your prior applications, but I could always send those to you.
Yep.
Need to identify any public improvements, and I'm assuming if there'll be a public improvement security agreement. Need to address the reservation of parkland or recreation fee in lieu. And I don't know, whether, because there is going to be open space and a soccer field, whether that's something that, this might actually be a case where you have parkland and that you don't need to do the fee.
So I think we have to ask the town board, because, we can establish that a fee is needed, but I think the town board determines the amount, perhaps.
That would be whether they're reserving public parkland so I think it would be a question really maybe about the soccer field and whether that's going to be public.
I believe
public
it is. It was going to
recreation
be
area.
town, right?
Oh, yeah, we're looking to dedicate that to the town.
Right.
So at a future meeting, I could walk you through that analysis and then whether the board finds that that's adequate parkland or recreation area for the
Right.
project. The site plan then has to comply with the requirements in section 5794E. So there's a bunch of those. I think Sean's memo had commented on most of them, if not all of them. There needs to be an HOA, plan, development, deed restrictions, covenants, and easements. And I believe the form of those gets approved by the town attorney. So when you're facilitating that, just to keep that in mind. They are typically, I think, though, things that would be able to be, always a condition of any site plan. There is one thing, though, that does need to be submitted to the town attorney, the title report. So that's supposed to be a full title report, supposed to be submitted prior to any site plan application. And the reason for that is to facilitate the review of all mortgages, leases, and similar encumbrances on common property to make sure that that's going to be subordinate to the deed restrictions that are required by the CCR. So if you could get the title report over to Brian's office as soon as you can. And if you could just copy me on that way I know it was submitted.
Ask a quick question. The wetlands, so DEC wetlands are present. Does that extend into the site? Was that DEC wetland to the?
Yeah, there's a small buffer area that's being disturbed because we needed to create an access road to that wastewater treatment plant. There's actually no proper way to get to it as it exists right now, except for a dirt road and grass. The DEC is essentially, and I've provided that correspondence to the board, to Noreen. I've given you the full email string from them at this point, which has, they've published in the paper. We have essentially met all their requirements. So that buffer disturbance is included in their permit.
Okay, so we'll have to condition on the permit then,
That's for the wastewater improvements as well.
for the Speedy's permits?
Correct.
We
Okay.
actually have that. That's been provided as well.
Okay.
So we have all that documentation. It's been provided to the town.
On emergency maintenance rights, that has to be handled as well, and these could, all be conditions again. And the other item was site and structure improvements, so your code sets forth specific requirements there. All electric telephone distribution lines underground, provide all fire hydrants, storm drainage, paved road access, parking, off-street lighting, et cetera. So just to make sure those are all met, and then you will have to have a public improvement security agreement with the town.
Is that fancy language for a public improvement cost estimate? Or,
Yes, essentially. But there's a huge agreement that has to be.
it's attorney language, we're used to engineer language.
Public improvement security agreement, so basically it's with the town, sets forth the estimates, and then also the, I think, timeline of when things are to be completed.
So do we have much longer, do you think, in terms of going through the comments, et cetera? Bob's not feeling well.
I'm
Actually,
done with mine.
Yeah, Sean's are pretty straightforward.
actually touched on most of mine. I just
Okay.
want to mention that the SWIP, there's one very minor change that has to be updated. Mike's spoken to my office earlier today, and we've provided architectural comments on the plans that were submitted. So really not a lot of site remaining comments. Just one thing that I'd like the board to weigh in on, the lighting. There's 3,000 Kelvin color temperature provided. Typically, you look for 2,700 Kelvin. I'm not sure if you're looking to maintain the 2,700 or if you're amenable to the 3,000 that's proposed.
I'm 2,700 preferable, but 3,000 is fairly amber too, so
It's very amber. I mean,
3,000, yeah.
Yeah.
We actually just installed LEDs in our office, and so we'll have a direct comparison. So I don't know if the board members feel strongly. I think if,
you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
we're okay with that then.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. I mean, going forward, I think we should say 27, but I'm okay with it for now. Is that it? Okay.
So then what are the immediate next steps that we need to do just to summarize, to move things forward? I know I have some work to do in terms of updating the plans and whatnot, but is it okay to consider then potentially scheduling a public hearing for the subdivision? I mean, I may need to revise the plans from a 5-lot to a 4-lot.
Well, perhaps we can open it, but leave it open, but the wetlands.
So the issue is that you need to have the final site plan approval with all the merged lots before you could approve the subdivision.
So can we schedule it tentatively to a determination that that's necessary? You're saying we need a final site plan approval before we can even have the
The
subdivision?
lots need to be merged for final site plan approval, and then
If that technically be
subsequent.
done the same night, just site plans approved and then subdivision after.
In other words,
Depends
what,
on whether just let me pull up the provision.
I mean, I could have the lots combined in a few days.
so let's do this, let's just tentatively, if it's possible to do that, we'll do it subject to Ashley opining on whether it's doable, just so that we.
I think it's fine to have the hearing. The only thing would be how the approval would work.
Okay.
Because you do need final site plan before you could approve a subdivision. You won't have final site plan until you have a signed plan, satisfy all the conditions, file all the easements, so.
We have the subdivision maps already
You do have the
in our
subdivision
packet?
maps.
Okay.
Yes.
And then,
You have timeframes with subdivision, so
so I will also say that tentatively, we could schedule a wetlands permit hearing, provided we have the application.
I have not looked at it yet. I don't know how extensive it is, but I presume I could probably submit that before the 30th. I think that's the submittal deadline.
So it'll be subject to, and again, we can open it, we may not close it.
or you could open it and the applicant could consent to extend that 62 days for
Okay.
making a decision, so that you could handle site plan and then make the decision on the subdivision once you have final site plan.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we tentatively open a public hearing,
I would just say to schedule the public hearing.
schedule a public hearing for the subdivision for Pilati Village and the wetland permit, subject to confirmation that we are able to do that procedurally. Or you think we should just do it, we can do
And I
it?
think you do it, it's more the approval process
Process?
that's going to
Okay.
be the
All right,
question.
So that we'll schedule it. May I have a second?
Second.
The regular meeting, December.
19th.
December.
Yes. Thank you.
Subject to receipt of,
And the wetlands application, yes.
Bonnie, who seconded?
Bob seconded. I'll just say, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions?
consent.
Motion carries. I saved you stuff, Noreen.
Thanks.
And Ashley, you'll get me the notice for that? Public hearing notice? We
And-
already have the mailing list from the town board, so we should be good there.
All right,
So if we just get the notice, we should be in good shape.
all right. So I think that's it for this evening, right? For Pilati Village, anything else we have to go through?
not for Pilati, but for,
Okay, so let's adjourn the meeting.
require an amendment to the resolution.
Oh,
It's quick, I could explain it very quick. The applicant is asking that the performance bond, which as I understand it is just required for the landscaping, be submitted prior to CO, rather than, right now it says prior to signing the plans.
so I spoke to the supervisor today, and he said he explained to the applicant that that performance bond had to be submitted prior to the signing.
Okay, this is what's been related
And
to
there will be
Maze.
no consideration. That makes it easier.
So, but thank you for reminding me, because I was going to bring that up.
Okay, so that would,
All right, so with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.